Hello and welcome back to the 63rd episode of the Oligarchy Disruptor podcast with your host, Bennett Leon. And of course, we have the lovely Ashley Downing with us as well.
Hi, everyone.
Alrighty, guys. So today we have a sad slash other type of video. We're going to talk about how Bernie Sanders, in his own kind of campaign and within the organization that he helped start, which is Our Revolution, we are going to watch Nick Brana, who was brought on by Jimmy Dore on his show to discuss how that kind of transpired in the Bernie Sanders campaign and how that went down. So we're basically just going to watch over that video, kind of dissect it part by part, stop it, and, do our usual spiel. So let's go ahead and jump in. So, let's see here. Okay, let's start.
So you did a Twitter thread today, and you talked about Bernie's closest advisor, his campaign manager in 2016, Jeff Weaver, who was still writing press releases for Bernie as of Monday of this week, is starting a super PAC.
Oh, and if I didn't mention it already, I'm pretty sure I did, but I just want to make 100% sure that Nick Brana used to work for Our Revolution. So he has insider knowledge not only into the Bernie Sanders campaign, but to the highest levels of the Sanders campaign. Once again, you're good. And then what's it called? Yeah, that's basically it. So that's why he's basically on the show. He has insider knowledge about that kind of stuff. So this video, I sent this to Ashley a few days ago. I was like, damn, this video almost made me cry. So sad to like learn all the things that he's going to talk to you guys about, which is why I wanted to take the time, not only to take like a little small snippet of it, but to show you the whole thing. So we're probably going to divide this actually in two parts, by the way, because we, with our own commentary and stuff, we want to make sure that you get everything that you need out of this. So let's go ahead and start.
It's just mind blowing. But here's the Twitter thread that you put up. So let me just read. I'm just going to read some of it. You did like 30 tweets. I think I have like 8 or 10 of them. You say Jeff Weaver is also the guy who convinced Bernie and Jane to start taking billionaire money at Our Revolution in August 2016. So now Our Revolution was the organization that Bernie set up to push for progressive candidates. I was there, meaning you. If I and the rest of the staff hadn't walked out in protest, they would have gone ahead with it. That's why we resigned. The worst part is that Jeff Weaver, again, Bernie's closest and longest advisor, wanted to use the organization's 501c4 status to take billionaire money without telling grassroots donors about it. All the while continuing to sign every email and piece of merchandise with paid for by Our Revolution, not the billionaires. Asking millions of poor and working class people who had just poured their heart and soul into the Bernie campaign to give more while not telling them we were taking billionaire money on the side is one of the worst things I've ever been asked to do. So are you saying that the people working at Our Revolution were being asked to not disclose that they were taking billionaire money and actively lied to their own supporters by saying we're not funded by billionaires? You were saying that the Bernie Sanders organization wanted you to do that?
It wasn't as explicit as you just put it, but it was implicit. It was basically, and so going back to kind of like June of 2016, we knew that Bernie had lost the nomination. He wasn't necessarily going to make a big push with the superdelegates. But we also knew that, we had gotten word that Bernie was going to form a kind of, organization to continue the political revolution, push for down ballot candidates. The organization, which would become OR, Our Revolution. And so, at the time, there was kind of a power struggle of sorts between people on the campaign who were kind of more career Democrats, and they kind of work on campaign to campaign. They've done it for a long time. And then people who were kind of, true believers of Bernie's cause, of, who is going to staff this organization, who's going to run the organization. And actually, those people who were like true believers in the cause, kind of won out on that fight and ended up staffing our revolution. For the most part, it was people who like really believed in Bernie's message. And so, we were very happy and we thought our revolution's future was really promising at the time. But there had been some troubling things that had happened kind of in the lead up to the creation of our revolution. And so, there was an immediate kind of deliberation about, when we decided that there was going to be an entity, our revolution, created, like, what is that? What is the legal status of that entity going to be? And there's different advantages to different legal statuses. And so, the two that kind of were in contention was a 501c4, which is what it ended up becoming, which doesn't have to, it can take as much money as it wants from individuals, and it doesn't have to disclose donors. And so that's why sometimes they're called dark money groups.
So I just wanted to stop it really quick to point out and make sure that our audience is aware that this guy is confirming that our revolution early on decided that they were going to take that type of money. They were going to be. That's why they're possibly called the dark money groups, like you just mentioned. Like this organization, the organization started by Bernie Sanders to continue his revolution, his political revolution in our country, is able to take money, dark money, from corporations, millionaires, billionaires, you name it. So that, and to hear someone that worked there actually verify this and tell us that this is what happened and what went on there. I mean, this is just the beginning of it. We're only in we're not even at the 5-minute mark of the video, but everything that he kind of talks about is going to compound off this fact, and it's a backstab to every Bernie supporter that I'm aware of and all that stuff. So, and including myself. Like I said, I fucking wanted to cry almost when I told you about it the first time. But yeah, any comment that you wanted to talk about before I put it back?
Just that it's astounding when he's talking about it, and the fact that he's obviously a credible source. You know that we can believe him. It's just insane because everybody who really believed in this movement, this revolution that he's talking about, we all believe that he was bought and paid for by us, by people who donated. I mean, I personally know people who were monthly donators. I've donated, so it's just, it's so crazy that this is the reality. And this is exactly what we kind of thought we were avoiding.
100%, dude. But I mean, this is where we kind of find ourselves now. So let's just go ahead and continue the video.
And they have no donation limit, and they can spend as much as they want for candidates with independent expenditures. And then the other was a PAC, a political action committee, which would allow us to spend less per candidate. There's a $5,000 maximum, but it would allow us to actually build a network of the candidates, because PACs are allowed to coordinate directly with candidates. And our revolution's mission was going to be all about supporting down ballot candidates and building a network. And then, whereas the C4 you're not allowed to communicate with the candidates in any way. And so, the staff thought, well, obviously it should be a PAC, because what we're looking to do is we're looking to coordinate and communicate with the candidates.
Now that's different. Now that's different than a super PAC.
Exactly.
So you're setting up a political action committee, not a super PAC.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, but then, but for reasons that we couldn't understand, Jeff Weaver was arguing for it to be a C4. And he convinced Bernie and Jane to make it a C4. And it was kind of like, it was very perplexing to those of us on staff, because we said, wait a minute, we literally can't fulfill the mission of the organization if it's a C4. We can't talk to the candidates. So we can't build this network that we're looking to build. But they insisted on it. And, so, it was like to the point where it's like, some of us were pointing out like the statute, like, here, look, it says it right here, like in the law. But the reason for
naive of them, in my opinion, naive of them when they should have been aware, and they'll of course, as you'll see, they'll soon find out why that is. That I was kind of hinting that they were being a little naive, but you guys will also find out too in just a sec. But it's basically Jeff Weaver. And if he also mentioned that before, but I want to make sure that you guys know it as well. Jeff Weaver was the campaign manager for Bernie Sanders back in 2016. He was removed from that position in 2020 for his re-election campaign, but or not re-election, another election campaign for the 2020 presidential. But he is on only as an advisor now, a top political advisor. So he's still on, still very much affiliated with the Bernie Sanders campaign, with Jane and Bernie and all those type of people. So it's really interesting to see who Bernie Sanders is kind of like surrounding himself with, and that's what this video kind of highlights, that kind of side of Bernie that not a lot of his supporters know about. I mean, I like to think that I kind of follow along with everything a lot, but I definitely found out a good amount of things from this video.
Same.
Something that we found out later. It was that Jeff, with Bernie and Jane's agreement, had wanted it to be able to be a C4, so that they would be able to take essentially money without disclosing the amounts. Because what Jeff got to work to immediately after it was formed, and which was no secret to us before it was formed too, was trying to essentially reach out to billionaire donors to give to Our Revolution. And this was part of the debate that happened before Our Revolution was formed. And we were shocked to find out, those of us who were going to be on staff, when Jeff started saying that he thought that we needed to take money from Steyer and Soros, because we thought, hold on a minute, we just waged a campaign where our success and our integrity was entirely premised on not taking big money. Like, why would we turn? And it was explosively successful. We defied all expectations. Why would we turn around and start taking that money now?
Right. Yeah. You raised hundreds of millions of dollars from grassroots supporters, proving that's the model for progressives going forward. And immediately after the campaign's over, Bernie's top closest advisor decides, let's start taking billionaire money. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it wasn't. And that was bad enough. But it got even worse, because we learned that because then the C4 part made sense. Because then it's, okay, you wanted it to be a C4 because you wanted to take this money without actually informing the grassroots donors who were going to continue giving to us, who were continuing to give in large numbers. And so it was disproving the very rationale. And so Weaver's rationale in his case to Bernie and Jane was that Our Revolution isn't going to be able to raise enough money to support down ballot candidates in a political revolution unless we start taking money from the billionaires. And those of us on staff, we said, but hold on a minute. We just proved that that's not true, and we think that that's going to hold true. We'll continue raising good amounts even after the campaign is over. People will still be committed to it. They won't just like vaporize. The movement won't dematerialize. And so Jeff was so determined to start taking this big money, though, that he actually went as far as I kind of say in the thread at one point. He went as far as to actually sabotage the grassroots fundraising.
So let me get to that, Nick. Let me show. So you tweeted out some conversations you were having with people about this, taking the billionaire money inside. And so here you tweeted this out. Let me read it. Without discussing it much, you and I and others who left when you left our revolution have been shielding Bernie Sanders in public. We've cut the blame off at Jeff and made excuses for Bernie. I think that to an extent, we're all protecting the legend because we know what it means to the people who gave so much of themselves to it. We know that people desperately want to believe in the existence of such a principled leader. It gives them hope and it gives them strength. So so that's kind of a big statement that you were putting the blame on Jeff Weaver when the blame really also belonged on Bernie Sanders, but you were doing so to protect the feelings of his supporters, not necessarily him, right?
We did it all to protect the movement, because it occurred to us, what are people going to think? I mean, like, circumstances are a little different now. People are a little more critical of Bernie, and that's a good thing. But like, if those of us who kind of, worked or volunteered on that campaign, if you can take yourself back to that mindset, I mean, Bernie he was a transcendent figure. He had this halo of incorruptibility, and he meant so much to people.
Yes, I was one of them. He meant a lot to me.
Yeah, me too.
Me 3. So that's why it's just so heartbreaking to find out something so integral and such a core piece of the Bernie Sanders campaign and his run for the presidency was standing and rallying against the corporate interests and all against these special interests that have reigned in Washington for so long, rallying against their power, and to have him put out, like they said, every single email, and then at the bottom of every email, I've received those kinds of things, those emails, those communications from them, they all say not paid for by the billionaires.
By the billionaires. Mm-hmm.
So, but at the same time, our revolution was, what was it, a 901c4?
501, yeah.
Oh, 501, 901. Wow. 501c4. So just so they could take that money from the billionaire class. And it's just because, not necessarily because Bernie Sanders or Jane agree with this or whatever, but because they have people in their campaign that are telling them these things, that are advising them to do these things that are not in their best interests. How could Bernie ever be complicit with this? But he is. That's the sad part. He is. He was told these things. You're going to find out more. They even confronted him about this. His own staffers, including Nick Brana that you're watching there. And Bernie Sanders stood down. He let them walk out. He let them walk out of the job rather than just doing the right thing. Ultimately, they decided not to take corporate or the billionaires' money. But I mean, that was
the whole
just
point of doing it. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So let's just go ahead and continue. But really heartbreaking shit that we're going to see here.
Yeah.
And he still does, but it's in a different way. It's kind of it's exactly. But Bernie, he.
Well, let me show this. You said Jeff Weaver sold Bernie and Jane on the notion that they would need to take money from billionaires because grassroots funding wouldn't be enough to sustain our revolution, and we couldn't unilaterally disarm. Weaver was so determined to take big money that he went as far as to sabotage our revolution's grassroots fundraising in an effort to make his prediction that we needed billionaires a self-fulfilling prophecy. Jeff leaked the announcement of our revolution in July 2016 before it was legally incorporated and able to accept donations, costing us millions of dollars. when the organization still raised millions after incorporating and disproved him anyway, he disregarded it. So what you're saying is the way he tried to undermine our revolution was before our revolution was even allowed to take donations, they weren't incorporated yet. He announced the formation of it, which kind of takes away the fanfare of an announcement, because now it's announced, it gets press, people go to donate, they can't. So you're saying he did that on purpose to undermine, so you couldn't raise money, so then he would shore up his point. See, we need to take billionaire money. You're saying that he intentionally did that? That's what you're saying?
Yes. He intentionally sabotaged the launch of the organization so that it would end up raising less money and end up proving him right.
So let's stop that there. Absolute bombshell that we're finding out. So where he just told you that Jeff Weaver would tell everybody about the creation of our revolution, so that people wouldn't donate, so that they could. So basically, he could prove his point to Bernie and Jane in saying that, oh, see, now they didn't raise enough money. You definitely have to take billionaire money now. You definitely have to do that. You're doing the right thing by doing this. That's manipulative. He's a fucking snake, dude. And what's worse is that he's bringing down our whole movement with it, dude.
But the thing is also Bernie bought into this crap. And Bernie, just kind of like what he said, what Nick said, that we're putting the blame on Jeff, when ultimately the decision was up to Bernie. And Bernie decided to make that decision. It's so astonishing to me, because one of the biggest things that I said about Elizabeth Warren, when she wouldn't drop out knowing that she wasn't doing well, and when she never endorsed Bernie Sanders, and then when she endorsed Biden, I regularly said that I felt like she was a sellout, that she lost my respect, that I couldn't believe she sided with the establishment over somebody who she considered a friend in the Senate. And now we find out Bernie sold out. Like, it's kind of like what he said, it's a blow to everybody who believed in Bernie as this progressive leader and I like how he said it, with this halo of uncorruption, or of he was unable to do uncorruptibility. That's really what I think a lot of people thought. I know that's what I thought. So it's very disheartening to listen to this.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Bernie isn't as principled a man as we thought he thought he was. Yeah, so
it should also say a lot about the establishment as well, and the power that they have, and the influence and manipulation that they are capable of. Because I think that, and from Bernie's track record, I think we can all say with some sort of confident clarity that Bernie is a very more than decent human being. He really does have good intentions. And he really did want to do, and does still want to do, a lot of good for the United States. But the establishment is also obviously crazy manipulative. And I think it says a lot that they were able to buy over all of these progressive candidates.
He's not like completely like we can't completely push on the blame onto the establishment, though, because
of course not.
Bernie,
but I think it's something to be said.
Yeah,
of course.
I mean, yeah, definitely the DNC and the establishment representatives, including DNC lawyers that were part of the Bernie Sanders campaign, other representatives that were part of the Bernie Sanders campaign at the highest levels, those advisors, consultants. He had that type of help in this time around in 2020, and where did it lead him? It totally screwed him over. So I think the more and more he listens to these kind of people, I think he's going to keep losing. I don't think he's going to run again for the presidency. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with the video.
In the debate with Bernie and Jane on needing the big money.
So
and it was estimated by our finance folks that we lost $3 million that way.
Ad guys, sorry.
this,
We'll just mute that for a second. Right.
that's amazing. That's an amazing statement. That's an amazing
It's money
statement.
that could have gone to candidates.
Yes, that's yep. You go, as horrible as this is, it's just scratching the surface of Weaver's repeated sabotaging of the 2016 campaign and profound disrespect for the progressive movement. I could write a book about it. But the most disappointing part is that Bernie and Jane went along with it.
Yeah.
And still listen to someone who is so clearly a corrupt establishment Democrat at the expense of this movement and the millions who are counting on it.
100%.
I've been trying to tell people this for a while, that Bernie's got horrible people at the tippy top of his campaign, and he's got them there on purpose. And this is exactly what I've been talking about. Jeff Weaver, the most disappointing part is that Bernie and Jane went along with this corruption. And they still listen to this guy. He's still putting out press releases. He's still speaking on behalf of Bernie Sanders and his campaign. As of Monday, so then you say, realizing that even someone as unique and principled as Bernie could be made to conform to the Democratic Party and take big money is a big reason that I left my career in the Democratic Party and set aside my own financial stability to help start the movement for a people's party. So that was really it. That was the last straw for you when you were working at Our Revolution and Jeff Weaver and Bernie and Jane all decided to take billionaire money?
It was shocking. Yeah. It was a very shocking experience.
You feel
like,
betrayed?
Sorry?
Did you feel betrayed?
I felt like Bernie didn't understand what the movement had been about. Like, I felt like he didn't understand himself the power behind the movement and what he had unleashed. Like, it was just it was so difficult to wrap our heads around. The idea that the same man who was going around and talking to tens of thousands of people every day in different cities about how we needed a political revolution and it needed to be free of corporate and billionaire money, and contrasting with the Wall Street speeches that Hillary Clinton was giving, that this could be the same person, that the same person could agree to taking billionaire money and not understand. Like, I think that was probably the most shocking part to me, was the lack of comprehension that Bernie seemed to have on what this was going to do to the progressive movement and the way that it was going to devastate it.
And so, but people, I don't know, we've reported it on this show. So what happened was at Our Revolution, when this came down and Bernie endorsed it, taking billionaire money in the dark and not telling people, you organized, was it 9 of the 13 people who worked at Our Revolution to actually walk out of the organization, right?
This is a really dope story, guys. Paid a lot of attention to this because this is a really pivotal moment, not only in this guy's life, and not only in Nick Brana's life, but also Our Revolution, the Bernie Sanders campaign, and the progressive movement at large. So if you guys are big fans of Bernie Sanders, love him to death, trust me, I was right there with you guys. I still love him to a certain extent. He's still Grandpa Bernie. Love you, bro. You did amazing things for us, but it looks like you weren't the man for the job, or you are the man for the job. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Yeah, I brought it up with other staff members, and I said, this isn't right, and we all kind of agreed. And we had a staff meeting, and we decided, we need to confront Bernie about this, and we did. And we told him that, and he wouldn't budge, unfortunately. He said that he thought we needed the money, and Weaver was already out there, trying to solicit money from Steyer. And so we, we said, well, we would rather resign than be a part of this. And that was kind of a last resort, and we did. And it was disappointing too, to know, we were trying to show Bernie how important this was to us, to the 9 of us who stepped down out of the 13 total staffers. And in saying, and it was disappointing to see him choose against that, essentially, and so he essentially chose to stay on the path that Weaver had charted. And the people who were there originally at our revolution, these were 13 people that had been picked from a staff that was at 2,000 at one point, so these were people who were really, really talented and really dedicated, I mean, some of the most incredible people I've ever worked with. And for Bernie to kind of have that decision in front of him, like, on the one hand, we could not take billionaire money, like the whole campaign says and the literature says, and keep all of my staff, like the best people who, I like picked to come work here. And on the other hand, we could take billionaire money and like go with Jeff. And it's like, if you would pick that, it was, it was incredibly disappointing, and it was very disillusioning.
When I found out about it, don't have heroes. Every day I get that same lesson in my life is don't have heroes, because they will always let you down, and it's kind of jaw dropping.
I think this is a great place to kind of wrap up this video, at least part 1 of this episode, at least video wise. We're still going to do a little commentary, but I just wanted to mention that I think that it's they're 100% right when they talk about like not needing, or Jimmy, when he mentions that it's not a good thing to kind of make these people into heroes, because you really get attached to them, especially because with people like Bernie Sanders, it seems so like principled and moral, like an incorruptible halo, like you mentioned earlier, right? But there are times when we have to look at every single body with a critical lens, and we can't be biased just because we like that candidate or that person or whatnot. As much as good as they did for you, like Bernie Sanders, personally, I can talk about how he brought me into the political arena. Like he woke me up to a lot of things going on in politics. He got me into the this kind of game. I can probably thank him for this podcast in general, to the creation of it, because he's the one that kind of inspired me to become so passionate about it and actually care and want to help people better understand politics and educate them. But at the same time, I cannot let my guard down and not have those critical lenses on for Bernie Sanders.
Not see reality.
Exactly. Because he, as much as a good of a person as he is flawed, and that's what this video highlights in more ways than one. We found out from this video that he likes to have horrible people around him. He takes the advice of people that completely disregard his movement that he started, the people that support his campaign. We also found out that Bernie Sanders has struggled with the idea of not accepting billionaire money into his campaign and his organizations. And then we found out that Bernie basically isn't as moral of a person as we thought he was. I mean, this video, I mean, we're more than halfway through it, but it's heartbreaking to find out how backwards Bernie was kind of thinking on this, and that he was complicit in all these actions that his former campaign manager was doing. Imagine the kind of damage that dude was doing to his campaign back in 2016 when he was the campaign manager, the sole campaign manager. At least Bernie had the sense to kick his ass out or off that pedestal in 2020 and replace him with a bunch of different co-chairs. But I think Bernie saw something, which is why he wasn't there. So, which is interesting because, like, if he saw something that he didn't like, why is he still around?
Why do you still keep him? Yeah.
Exactly. So, do you want to chime in on anything before we go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I just find that everything about this video is just shocking and disappointing. And I think that everything that Nick was saying about it being harmful to our revolution, the movement, is so accurate. The amount of people who believed in Bernie as this sort of leader, I think, just are going to be frustrated that it turned out to be this same sort of facade that every other politician puts on for us. And I kind of, I don't know, I kind of like this Nick Brana guy and think maybe he could be the next big progressive leader. I mean, there are definitely a lot of people out there who still believe in this revolution, and I hope that we can get past this whole Bernie Sanders scandal, and whatever, we can have a leaderless party for right now.
Yeah. Although I fear that without like the right leaders in place, our movement is doomed to fail. Although at this point, we don't really have the option to fail,
Yeah.
or fail more than we have been.
Yeah, well, I think if we continue to have people out there like Nick Brana, and the other, 9 people that, were willing to literally lose their careers over this, I think there's plenty of other people out there who believe in the movement enough to make sacrifices such as those. So hopefully we'll have those new leaders in place soon.
Yeah, hopefully people will rise to the moment and meet the challenges that are facing the American people, the many challenges that we're facing on so many fronts.
Yeah.
So whoever it is, you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, but I also want to say too that that's what I really appreciate. And not to like toot our own horn or anything, but that's what I really appreciate about our podcast, though, and I think that I hope that our listeners appreciate too, is the fact that we were such strong Bernie advocates this entire podcast, and we will still be the first to talk about his disappointments and the things that he did wrong, and admit that we don't think that he's the best leader for this movement now, and which is something that you will not hear from a lot of media, as in contradicting their past opinions.
100%. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast, right? To show people all the things that the media doesn't tell you, which is a lot. And your own government, of course, that tells you even less than the media. So that's why we have this podcast to kind of hit it over the head once again. So once again, guys, I think this is a great place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And Ashley and I will see you on the next episode. Or part 2, actually.